Okay, guys, my name is Vamshi Krishna, and my presentation topic is qualitative analysis on business. Before we jump into the main topic, I would like to discuss the qualitative analysis. Basically, analysis is something where we carry out the evaluation of a product. We see how good it is, how efficient it is, whether it needs some improvement or not. This is analysis, like we check it out. So it is majorly classified into two classes, that is qualitative and quantitative. Now, as the name indicates, the quantitative is something related to the mathematical digits, that is in numbers we see how it is, whereas qualitative analysis here we doesn't deal in numerical or quantities. We deal in quality. We see how pure a product is, how good a product is, how efficient a product is. So that's based on the quality. So this is qualitative analysis. Now if we see the qualitative analysis role in the business management, so we mainly classify it in four parts, that is value added and waste analysis, root cause analysis, Pareto analysis, and issue register. Let's start with the number one, that is value added and waste analysis. First I will describe the value added, then I would go to the waste analysis. Now before I start the process, I would like to discuss briefly what is value added. Now, value added is basically the analysis where we see or where we feel the need, what kind of additional features should be added to a product to appeal and attract more customers and boost up our revenue and profit. So in simple words, value added is basically additional features or economic values that a company adds up to its product to ultimately attract the customers and boost up the revenue and profits. Let's have an example. For example, the customer doesn't have to concern with the raw materials. For example, we have plastic or steel or aluminium or glass or whatever. So the customer doesn't have to deal with its raw materials. Let's take the example of phone, smartphone. Now the customer don't know what kind of material it is made of, how it is made of. What the customer see is just a solid smartphone. So the customer doesn't have to deal with the raw materials. They just see the very end product, the finished good product. So as much as we add on the value or the additional features, that much it is going to attract the customers. But we have to look at our economical situations as well. Now value added analysis, we classify this process into steps. Every task that has to be done, before doing it we definitely need to carry out some steps which ultimately leads to finishing the task. So what we do is that the value added analysis, this is a process which we classify into different steps. Each step is then further classified into smaller steps. These all steps combines and perform one task. That one task being performed is basically a step to next task. That next task then is a step to another one task. These tasks being done one by one ultimately leads to the completion of the process. So then these steps are classified: value adding, business value adding, non-value adding, value adding activities. So we have a criteria for it. Basically, again, value adding, we do it for the attraction of the customer. So this is ultimately the satisfaction of the customer. Now there is a criteria, means that this value adding step, is it very important to do? Wi- will it be beneficial to the customer? If we drop out this step, will it affect the customer's reviews? So this is the criteria. Is the customer willing to pay for this step? Would the customer agree to that this step is necessary to achieve their goals? If the step is removed, would the customer perceive that the end product or service is less valuable? Let's have an example about uh, for example, the online shopping. A customer likes a jacket and he orders it, and he is willing to have the cash on delivery, but there is no option available. Now, this non-availability of the option is ultimately depriving the company from achieving its goal. That is, the customer is not being attracted anymore because the customer is interested. So we have to look at the customer's interest. So this step, that is the customer willing to pay for this step? Yes, the customer is willing to pay for that step. So we need to add it, because if you do not add that step, the customer is not going to buy anything then. So this is the cash on delivery is just an example, a random example. Now, if we do not add this step, so that that person who is willing to pay when the parcel is arrived, that is the cash on delivery. But if we remove that step, so I don't think so the customer is going to order and pay online. So this is the criteria. Would the customer agree that this step is necessary to achieve their goal? So yes, this is important, because ultimately we have to see to the ease of the customer. If the customer is not feeling comfortable for paying before the product is arrived, so that's useless. So we have to look at the ease of the customer. If the customer is satisfied with the cash on delivery, so we have to provide that step, and we have to provide it because we have to achieve our goal. And what our goal is, to sell the product. So ultimately, if we look at the end of the customer, the satisfaction of the customer is everything for us. Example, order to cash process, confirm delivery date, that is the same thing. West analysis, this is the second part of the first step. All we are doing is looking at the timeline from the moment the customer gives us an order to the point when we collect the cash, and we are reducing the timeline by reducing the non-value adding vests. So it is a quotation by Taiki Onu. In simple words, vest analysis is basically the systemic approach towards the management of waste substances and products that involves identifying, quantifying, eliminating, and preventing waste in manufacturing, service, and office environment. This this step, the waste analysis, it doesn't have to deal with the customers. It has nothing to do with the customer. For example, there is overproduction. The product is not made or prepared or ready or available to the customer on time. Inefficient operations, lack lack of availability in the inventory, these all comes under the umbrella of waste analysis. So this step has to be taken in consideration. We have to provide the product on time, so there is no waiting. We have to be precise on our production quantity as well. Overproduction is just a waste. Inefficient operating time would again lead to the delay of the product, so ultimately affecting the company. Now, there are seven sources of the waste. One is unnecessary transportation, motion, inventory, waiting, defects, overprocessing, overproduction. Now the hold is basically inventory. Inventory is basically our reserves, where we have our reserves for the production of a specified product. For example, if you do not have any kind of leather available in our inventory, so there won't be any product prepared by the industry related to the leather. So this is the inventory. So we have to take these things in our consideration. Overdue, it includes defects or processing or production. So again, defects, this is the major point to be highlighted, because if the product we prepare is defective, so customer satisfaction is zero, and our goal is the satisfaction of the customer. Same as over processing, overproduction. this all is going to lead to the waste analysis and ultimately to the loss of the company. So unnecessary transportation, send or receive materials or document includes electronics taken as input or output by the process, motion of resources internally within the process, common in manufacturing processes, less common is in business processes. Inventory, this is again which I described. This vetting is basically, as I said, that if we do not have the material available for the product, so we would have to wait. And if we have to wait, ultimately the customer is going to be affected. So the availability of the raw material for the production of the finished good product is important. So we can reduce these steps. Defects, again, if there is any kind of defect, correct it, rework the loops. If there is any kind of defect you see or you noticed in the process, so restart the process. Or processing task perform unnecessarily given the outcome of the process, unnecessary perfectionism, overproduction. This is the same thing which I described. This is equipmental rental process. Now, if we need a kind for every productive for every product, the preparation process is different. So we need different equipments. Now, if we need a specified equipment for a specified product, first we have to send a rental request. Then we would have to select the suitable equipment. We would see the availability of that specific equipment. If it is available, it's a green signal, move to the review rental request. The rental request would be reviewed. If it is a green signal, it would go to the create purchase order. If the signal is not green, rejected. The request is rejected. So it's just a flow sheet. And then there is a clerk and engineers who works on this thing. So have a look of it. Documentation. Documentation. Okay. So documentation is basically when we have to um, like captures and keep track of everything. So documentation is something when we have the data in written form. And every good firm, every good company, they must have the valid, authentic, and up-to-date documented form of every process they do. Not just the process, but every raw material that comes to the industry, they would have the documentation of it. Every process taking place on a specific date, on a specific day, they would have the documentation of it. So issue register is something which maintain, organize, prioritize perceived weaknesses of the process. For example, there is a weakness, there is a defect, or let's say there is a shortage of something in an ongoing process, and we do not document it. And the other day we again start the same process and we again face the same issue. So due to the lack of documentation, we would see the issue again and again. So documentation comes very handy. It's important to document everything. Issue registers, basically these are to capture and keep tracks of all formal issues. This is regularly monitored by the project manager. A spreadsheet is made where each line is an issue and different columns are made, each column giving its specific description. That is issue ID, issue type, when it is raised, when it how it is raised, or it is raised by what. Then the description, we have a current state of that issue, and we have the closed data. If the closed date, sorry, if the issue is closed, so we would write the date on which it has been closed. So there are different sources of the issue. Input to a process modeling project collected as a part of ongoing process improvement actions, collected during process discovery, value added, waste analysis, Pareto chart. I would come to the Pareto chart in a while. Now you see the issue register is important. Everywhere you go, even in the shop, in the shops, the small shops, they would have a register where they will have everything written. That is how much this thing came in kgs, on what date it came, on what price it came. So everywhere documentation plays an important role. It keeps us up to date. By documentation we have, um, like we can keep track for everything. So documentation is very much important. Now we have the Pareto chart, which is Pareto analysis. Basically, Pareto chart is a statistical method that is used for decision making by using Pareto principle or the law of vital few. It indicates that 80% of the problem occurs as a result of 20% causes. So this is just a statistical law which say that 80% of the problems occurs as a result of 20% of the causes. This Pareto chart helps us identify problematic areas or tasks that will have biggest payoff. For example, by this Pareto chart, we can identify the problems, and if we solve that problem, so it would gives us a big payoff. As just a general example of the Pareto law, Pareto principle, it says that 80% sales comes from 20% of the clients. So this is about the Pareto chart. This is useful to prioritize a collection of issues. Bar chart, where the height of the bar denotes the impact of each issue. Bar sorted by impact. Superposed curve of cumulative percentage impact. Now this is a two-dimensional prioritization pick chart. Pick stands for possible. Pick stands for possible, implement, challenge, and kill. Now you see this is again a statistical studies. So this is a chart which visualizes, uh, which help visualize tools for organizing ideas. It helps groups or individuals to identify which ideas can be implemented easily and have a higher payoff. So here you see there is implementation, challenge, kill, and possible. Now the dot, I guess it represent the more consistent the dot are concentric, the dots are in the specified block. Let's see, let's have a look at the chart. In the implements there are more dots as compared to that of the possible. So each dot basically represent an idea or an issue, but more precisely I think it is ideas. So there are different ideas. So if it is in the implement section, so it means that these ideas should be implemented. So it means that these ideas should be implemented. Same for the challenge. So if there is any kind, sorry, if these dots basically represents that these ideas are challenging for us, and same as like for possible and the kill. Now the last step in the business management, that is why diagram. Now as we have been discussing the issue register, so the root cause analysis is related to that. Now I would just generally define what root cause analysis is. Process of discovering root causes of problems in order to identify appropriate solutions. Means to say that if you know that the problem is caused by this factor, so you can easily solve it. But if you do not know what the cause of the specified problem is, so it would be a bit hectic for you to just directly get a solution, because if you do not know the cause, so how you are going to solve it. So let's have an example, a general example. Okay, organic foods. Let's take an example of the fruit items. Let's say just a general example. Now if a person goes and he buys an apple juice, and when he have a few sips of it, he find its taste a bit not okay. So he checks the expiry date, and there is a week or month to the expiry date. Now this is a problem. Now we get the complaint that this product have this issue. It's not expired, but its test is not okay. So to solve that issue, we have to look at the causes, what the causes are. So if we find out the cause, we will easily solve the problem. Let's have another example. For example, a person is going on a road, he falls, his wrist is broken, and the bone is broken. Now there is pain, of course there would be pain, and he takes painkiller, and the pain is gone. Now the pain is basically a symptom. The broken bone, that is a problem. If we give painkiller, so it is not going to solve the broken bone. It's not going to treat the broken bone. It's it's just going to treat the symptom. That is, it would like get you off from the pain you are having. So this is not the treatment. To treat, we must have to treat the broken bone. We just cannot treat the symptoms. Yes, if we treat the symptoms, so for time being it would be okay, but on the long run, at the end of the day, it's not worth it. So we need to dig out the root cause, and then according to the root cause, we have to give the solutions. So this is okay. So the root cause analysis diagram, that is YY diagram, cause effect diagram. So every cause would ultimately leads to an effect. In other words, uh, every effect must be having some causes. It's just like factors and issues interrelationship. So if we know the factors, we know the issue. If we know the issue and we don't know the factors, we must dig out the issue. We must look at its root factors. So knowing the root factors, we can move on and grab a solution for that problem. This is again issue, contributing factors. Then each contributing factor might have a number of other contributing factors. So the more we deeply dig, so the more we know and the more easy it is to get the solution. This is again a causal factor fishbone diagram. Measurement, primary, secondary. For example, you have a problem in a machine, and you know the root cause of the problem. There is the machine, and then in the machine, which specified part. And if you know it, so you can just solve it. Like there must be engineers who would know it, so you would know that this specific engineer is good for this operation, so that engineer can carry out the solutions. Okay, here comes the end of my presentation. I hope I tried my best, and if there is any questions, I'm inviting. Please ask. Thank you so much.